Good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today's talk is entitled Overcoming Difficulties in Social Media, Communication Difficulties in Social Media. So, my name is Edward James Tagg. I'm a starseed coach, a spiritual enlightenment coach, an inner child therapist, a psychic clairvoyant medium, all sorts of different little hats that I wear. Now, anyway, as a joke, I typed the title in capitals, and that's just kind of a joke because it just shows that how sensitive the world of social media can be with perceptions about communication. You know, even if you type something in capitals, it's considered almost bad manners, like you're sort of like pushing a point. So I'm going to be talking primarily around all the feelings that people have around social media and the difficulties that arise primarily from just simple misunderstanding and what you want and how you're coming across. And I'm going to cover that really in depth. I'm going to say hello to Julie, and then I'm going to say hello to everybody. And what I have to do, which is another social media difficulty I have to do, is I have to turn my sound off, because sometimes people, and even telephone calls, come in when I'm giving my talk. So it's no surprise that social media is challenging when it comes to communication. And I'm going to be dealing with some of the fluffy surface. I'm going to be dealing with the really challenging and difficult, because I did know someone that I got in brief contact with who actually committed suicide. And then there was a whole social media communication challenge with people understanding why he committed suicide, and no one really knew. And so social media has a lot of power and influence. And then I'm going to be dealing, as an inner child therapist, dealing about your inner core feelings, like why are you communicating on social media? What are you trying to portray? What do you want? What do you want to get back? And what do you want to offer? And why are you doing that? Are you aware at your inner child level why you do what you do? Self-aware or completely oblivious? I'm going to be going into that quite a lot. So that's the first question. I think it's important for everybody to ask themselves, why are you using social media? And you might say, well, Edward, that just, speaks for itself, but it doesn't. I think it's very important, particularly if you're using social media as some form of business or influence where you've actually got an objective. I think it's very important to actually write some of these bullet points down and then challenge yourself, or not challenge yourself, actually diagnose yourself. So here's the first question. Why are you using social media? Is it simply love because of loneliness and you love connecting with people? Is it power, like you really want to assert yourself and say, this is wrong? And is it about injustice? Is it about COVID-19 and mask wearing, or about woke politics, or white supremacy, with the National Rifle Association? So is it about power? Is it about influence that you just enjoy, or you like to influence people in a positive or a negative way? And be really honest with yourself about that. Or is it just plain old insecurity, and you've never had a platform to express yourself, and now social media promises to give you this platform? So just think about that. Like, I'll give you a few examples of myself, and then we can understand why we are using social media. I think that's very important. So one reason, I actually use social media for a number of different reasons that are actually completely unrelated. One of them is, I haven't got a photograph of my father, but my father and we were always in the workshop using tools. Like, this is a Wen skill saw, and I lived in Los Angeles for 2 years, so I just love American-made power tools, and I love English-made power tools. So I will use platforms. And I've even built my own groups. I have a group called Pit Soaring and Soaring by Hand. Now, you might think, okay, Edward, I thought you were going to talk to me about spirituality and psychology and inner child. And yes, I am. But people use social media platforms to meet all of their individual needs. So one of my needs is bonding with a social group that reminds me of my father and growing up as a child. So that might be one of your reasons, just trying to find a like-minded group because you're either lonely or you just love being around people who are like you. And then I also have other social media groups where I do it for business, where I'm definitely telling people that I'm an inner child therapist or a psychic, and you can get a reading from me or some counseling from me or some training with me. And I have other groups for that. So if you're doing that from a business standpoint, your objectives and what you want could be very, very different than just sharing. I have another, like on YouTube, I have a video called How to French Polish a Vintage Sewing Machine. You see where my thumb is right here. See the angle? Boom, there. I French polished a vintage sewing machine, and I think I've got 3,000 likes, and that's my most popular video on YouTube. So I think it's very important to ask yourself the question, number one, why am I using social media and what do I want to get out of it? Now, number two, I recommend that you make a really accurate self-assessment. Now, the reason I'm saying this, it helps overcoming communication difficulties in social media, is a lot of people don't know themselves well enough. So when they're placing themselves in certain social groups, they're actually making blinding mistakes about who they are and who their target audience is. And I make this mistake myself. And so here's some of the classic mistakes you make, is that you don't make an accurate assessment of you, your cohort, your social group, your age, your political values and everything. So I recommend you do an accurate self-assessment, like, are you middle class or are you working class? Are you rich or poor? Are you very, very out there, as an extrovert? Or are you, should you be aligning yourself a group, of highly sensitive people who are introverted, who only want to talk about, pagan, herbalism or something like that? So try and make an accurate assessment of who you are. So for me, I'm ENFP, so I'm very much an introvert, but on social media I'm actually an extrovert, so it's really confusing. I'm very, very heart-centered and very full of love, but I can also sometimes, be easily hurt because I'm a Cancerian. I wear my heart on my sleeve. Sometimes I even, well up with tears and almost cry on social media. So make an accurate self-assessment of yourself. Are you likely to be really hard? And so the reason this is very, very important for overcoming communication difficulties in social media is that you might be coming across totally different to how you feel. And this is one of the biggest problems, is that I'm kind of coming in with a loud voice and very, very gun-ho. Say hello to Scott and everybody else. So I'm coming in sort of confident and gun-ho, and then people, you might tread on people's toes, and you say, well, Edward, you were a bit forceful when you said that, and I didn't know you had those feelings, and that was a bit racist, or that was not very politically sensitive, or whatever. And so sometimes the way you come across can actually be very, very different to what you're intending. So make an accurate self-assessment, and also be really, really true to yourself. Some people are using social media and they're making a personality transition or change, and you see this a lot on TikTok and all sorts of things. Some people are bubbly and they're really good in front of the camera. Some people feel awkward, and some people really use it in an awkward kind of misappropriate way. And I'm not going to talk about sex and porn and other things, because that's not the topic here. But just make an accurate self-assessment so you know who you are. So when people come back at you and say, Edward, I didn't know you were like that, and I didn't know that you had those political views, and I didn't know that you were angry at the Chinese or the Ukrainians or whatever it was, and then you go, oh yes, I'm sorry, I haven't given you an accurate portrayal of my true personality. I don't really feel that way, but I said it on social media, but actually I don't really harbour those views. It's weird how we can behave differently on camera, or when we're tweeting away, and just we might go into a rant. And sometimes I like Donald Trump, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I like the left wing politics, and then sometimes I see Pelosi and she said something really stupid, and I'll give the left a slap on the side of the face, and then people will say, Edward, why are you attacking the left? What's wrong with you? I didn't know you had those politics. So sometimes we don't portray ourselves, and we don't know ourselves very well, and then we come across inaccurately, very badly. Number 3, make an accurate assessment of the other people or the groups either you want to meet, or either the groups you're in, or either the groups that are listening and hearing you. Now this is really, really, really weird, and because I come across to totally different groups. When I'm channeling Mother Mary, and that may surprise you, like I can pick up a Wen circular saw and be a bloke, but because I'm a spiritual enlightenment teacher and because I work with angels, you might not know that actually I channel Mother Mary, and this is my 2nd week, and I go into a meditative stance and I speak very softly and very lovingly, and I actually bring through Mother Mary's words. So people can be multifaceted, and people can find that very, very, very confusing. So you've got to understand your target audience and what they're going to be perceiving about you. So funnily enough, whenever I look for groups about Mother Mary, most of them are in 3rd world countries. A lot of them are in Philippines and Southeast Asia, or Mexico, or Spain, and those countries that are basically Catholic. And so those groups are very, very, very different to starseed groups. Starseeds that might live in Mount Shasta or Arizona, or, Sedona or Glastonbury, and politically, and their views about being out there or being, they're just very, very different. So when I'm promoting myself about Mother Mary, I meet totally different groups, and you've really got to understand your target audience very, very accurately. And then when I'm on social media group, and I'll show you my saw one more time, and I'm running a group called Pit Soaring and Soaring by Hand, I'm communicating with blokes, guys who are generally sort of in their 50s and 60s like me. They've got blokey attitudes. Sometimes they surprise you and they're really sensitive and loving and kind, and then sometimes they're just really controversial and just say, oh, my father never brought me up that way, we always did it that way back in my day, and they'll get very offended or not at all. So you've got to understand your target audience, and you've got to make a really, really accurate assessment, because most people in their target audience or their social groups, they're actually making mistakes because they don't perceive them very well. And as you very, very well know, when first social media came out, everybody, did a green screen, and they put it, like if you were New Age, you put a galactic, image behind your head, and you didn't want to hide the fact that you might have been living in a trailer park or cheap housing, and you had a backdrop and you put some flowers here. And even I did it myself. I used to kneel on the ground over there where I've got this wall hanging that looks like a carpet, and I had myself meditating, and I was going to have 2 vases with flowers, and I think I put flowers for just one of my talks, but then I thought, this manufactured image of me being a spiritual enlightenment teacher in front of a wall hanging with 2 vases of flowers was kind of nice, but I decided it wasn't really accurate. So understand that when you're talking to a group or talking to a person or talking to a target audience, the way they present themselves might not be true. So you've got to get behind all of that and find out who they really, really, really are. So what I recommend you do, and I do this particularly in Facebook, I go first to photos and I scan all their photos. First I look at profile pics. I kind of try and read their face, and I read their spiritual energy, and then I'm looking at other points. And it's, I've got just under 5,000 people in my Facebook group, but even each time I get a new friend, I still check them out. Like, if I saw that they were totally obsessed with dragons and reptilians, I just wouldn't go there. If they were pushing drugs a lot, smoking marijuana and pushing that a lot, I wouldn't go there. So I think it's very, very important to make an accurate assessment of the person that you're interacting with or people who are following you. And then don't be embarrassed And don't say, well, you're being very non-inclusive and you're being very racist, or you're being very, rejecting or not accepting. It's okay. And the reason I say that it's okay is that we live in a multifaceted world with a wide vibration of spiritual vibration and a wide influence of social groups. Everything from third world countries to the darkest corners of Africa gets on social media, to people who run scamming groups in India, all the way through, in social media towards successful people in London, selling timeshares, and people in, Florida, selling real estate. And then I've even got two close friends that are both, one's a famous actress and one's a famous singer, and the singers sang to the president and the Pope, and this actress has been in movies. So you get all of them in social media. You get all of them. So it's very important to make an accurate assessment of that person and just go through their photos, and don't give yourself a hard time, because you can accept everybody if you want to. I don't recommend you do, and it may sound racist or non-woke, and I don't care. You've just got to protect yourself. You've got to set your boundaries, what you're willing to accept and what's safe for you. I mean, safety is a really important issue. And some people are just too accepting. It kind of worries me a little bit when people, young attractive women or older attractive women who are just desperate for attention, and they go live on TikTok, and they've got all these blokes from Africa and India, paying them all these glorious, wonderful compliments, and they seem to do it every day where they're just going live, and I just cringe, and I feel sorry for them. And are you really presenting yourself, in a negligee, or wanting attention to everybody in the world? So, when we grew up in the 1960s, or wherever you were in the world, or the 50s or 40s or wherever, you just interacted with your street, and kids went out on the street and they kicked a ball, and you watched Little House on the Prairie, and you might ask your neighbour for a cup of sugar. But now you're doing that with Africa, India, Guatemala, London, Uzbekistan. You're doing it with everybody. And it may sound very, very judgmental, and I'm not even going to apologize for that. You've just got to protect yourself, and you've got to be realistic. So make an accurate assessment of the other group. You've also got the 5 stages of soul development, and I've talked about this before, that there are baby souls, and then there are young souls at different levels of their development. And when you're trying to influence, or when you're trying to connect with people, don't be surprised if you're speaking on a certain level of understanding, but baby souls or young souls, they just won't get you. So if you're making inaccuracies in your communication, you might be missing. You might be shooting your arrow, trying to find your target audience and talk about, oneness, or talk about spirituality, or talk about morals, or talk about the United Nations, or talking about politics, or the war in Ukraine and Russia, and you might have a position or a level of vibration, but your target audience, if they're operating from a different level on those 5 stages of soul development, don't be surprised if the baby souls get scared and they talk about their values. If they're coming from Texas or Louisiana, and they're they've got people in the National Rifle Association in their family, or if you go all the way to Canada or Washington or Seattle, and then your target audience is going to be woke left-wing politics, and they have their slant on it. Just be aware that there are many different peoples in the world, and many different ways in which people can perceive what you're saying. So you can honestly, with a loving heart, talk about oneness, or talk about spirituality, or talk about having compassion for Russians and Ukrainians, and trying to balance out that equation and just show them all love. But then your target audience, you've missed the mark, and you're shooting lower rather than higher, and they're just still angry. And if they are angry, and if they're baby souls or young souls, or sometimes you can even get reptilians there. Now, I don't want to scare too many people, but there are souls, humans walking around in human skin bodies, but their actual soul, and you can see it through their eyes, they're actually reptilian and they're dark, and they will always have a dark agenda. I don't want to talk about that too much because I don't want to engender fear on anybody, but these are the types of people that could be your mistaken target audience, and you're hitting or meeting the wrong types of people. And we can all be love and light, and we can all want to, influence everybody and do the very, very best and come from oneness and come from, higher dimensional thought and fifth dimensional thought or whatever you want to talk about. And we can all do that. But then there's the idealism, and then there's the stark reality. So they do say that when you get older, elderly people, they start getting more realistic, and when you're young, you're idealistic. And I take my hat off to all the young people that want to be idealistic and just fluffy ducks and love everybody, and that's really, really great. And I still continue to do that to the best of my ability. But don't be surprised if you meet the wrong country or meet the wrong group or meet some reptilians and they're just, it doesn't matter what you say, they're going to hate you or diss you or twist your words around. Sometimes I've had a really, really positive week and I'm just fluffy ducks. I've been praying, listening to higher music, talking to Mother Mary, and I feel wonderful. And I'll say something really like loving and non-judgmental and just, complimentary towards someone. And there'll be a reptilian in a group, or a real negative dark person like a real psychopath, and they'll just say, "Oh, you're just nah, 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 nah," and they'll have a dig. And you'll say, "Wow, where did that come from?" And you're saying, "I was having such a wonderful week," and then they took it completely the wrong way, and they're just attacking me. And I go, "Oh my God!" And then you sort of walk into your kitchen, you make yourself a cup of tea, and you go, "Whoa." Like, what just happened? I was feeling really, really wonderful and I got attacked. Well, don't take it personally. You're just hitting the wrong target audience on that day. You just made a mistake and it's not your fault. So, number 3, make an accurate assessment of the others. And you do have to set boundaries and say what you will and won't accept. I had someone in my group, the other person kind of let them in because I have a colleague, and I knew that they did drugs. And I knew that they were kind of quiet about it. Well, they weren't quiet. And then I just saw 2 or 3 occasions where they were smoking in their car and the car was full of smoke. And then one time they put, marijuana buds on their, live story, and they call it Sirius Black. And I just said, I'm done with this person. I'm not having drug promoting in my group. And I just blocked them. So if you're blocking people, don't be hard on yourself. Sometimes you have to do it. You have to set boundaries. It's part of protecting and loving yourself. And just block them, but do it with love, and then just say a little prayer to God. Dear God, I'm blocking this person right now, but if it's in the highest galactic, universal truth that they should meet me and talk to me again someday, 6 months down the line, because people change and people see that, they were either doing marijuana or they were angry or they were just going crazy about, mask wearing, that week, about COVID-19. Just give them a chance, send them off with love, say a prayer. Dear God, although I'm blocking them right now, they might come back to me. And that happens all the time. I said something really, really stupid. I may as well just share with you. I just said something really, really stupid. I'll try and say it in such a way where you'd never know who this person was. But this person was depressed because they got to a certain age and they said, I'm not married and I'm not having kids, so I'm going to commit suicide. And they've been doing this for a while. And I thought, what the heck can I do? And I just tried and tried and tried and tried. And I said lots of loving things. I just promoted them. I said they were wonderful. And they were. They're a beautiful, wonderful human being, and they just can't see themselves. So I just said, well, and I was just getting really frustrated with them because they just couldn't see how wonderful they were. And I said, well, what happened if I just got on a plane right now and flew over there and married you and, gave you 5 kids? Would that solve your problem? And I was just frustrated. I was just using it as an illustration, and they go, oh my God, how could you suggest that, Edward? I never saw you in that light, and now you're want to marry me and give me kids. Block, and she blocked me, or she got really, really wounded, and she blocked me. And then she came back 6 months later and she unblocked me. She said, Edward, I'm sorry, I just really, I I wasn't that I got an icky feeling. I mean, I love you. I know who you are. I know you're just trying to help me. And there's a huge age difference, and you were just, and I just said, yeah. I was just trying to use an illustration and just show you that that I care about you. And I was trying to teach them, and this is where it all goes wrong. I was trying to teach them that it wasn't about whether or not she was married or whether or not she had kids, and that she was a good person and that God loved her, and she just couldn't see. So this is a perfect example where communication just goes badly, badly wrong. And sometimes we block people, sometimes people block us. But just say a prayer, 6 months, 6 years, or whenever, they might come back to you and they might apologize. And that's happened to me many, many times, and it's turned out really beautiful, actually. Every time there's been blocking of me or someone else, in most cases they've come back to me and they've had a reassessment, or I've had a reassessment, and we're just like really great friends. And it's just, so don't take it personally. Sometimes setting boundaries and saying what you won't accept, like for me, I won't accept reptilians promoting dragons and demons on their page. If that's just a no-go. Drugs, particularly marijuana, hallucinogens, I accept them up to a point, because I know quite a lot of people who have done drugs and they're in psychiatric hospitals, or they're having problems, with voices or whatever. That's just the kind of work I do. I wish I had a glass of water, but I don't. And I still love them and still accept them, and I don't care about the history of drug use. I'll love them anyway. But if they haven't got the point, and if they haven't learned from it, and they're still being really cool and trendy and smoking marijuana and just promoting it lackadaisically, which means relaxed, then I say, hold on a minute. For now, you still haven't learnt your lesson. I'm just going to say bye-bye. If you come back to me in 6 months, when you kind of seen the light and you're not, promoting drugs anymore, I'll still lovingly welcome you into my heart. So setting boundaries, what you don't and do accept, and blocking people is fine. It's an act of self-love, and you have to protect yourself. Misperceptions due to social media limitations. Now, what I mean by this, and I said that earlier, that when people put a manufactured wall behind them. Well, this is actually my real wall. I really do have sewing machines. I really do have a picture of Mother Mary. I really do have a heat pump thing on the wall, and I really do have a typewriter that I've used in the past, and I really do have a rolling pin where I roll flour, and so this is real. But a lot of people have a manufactured environment, and so you can see that I'm quite relatable. I've got this t-shirt. I mean, I did some social media where I actually dressed up in a suit, a jacket and tie, and I ironed a shirt, and then I did that, and then I sat down in front of the camera, and I thought, I wanted to be like an English professor or like an English psychotherapist and portray a certain image. So misperceptions due to social media limitations. Now, the other limitation with social media is that if you're only social media do it if by am I pretty, mostly quiet, mostly. I'm Laurel's saying something. I'll give you your props and put yourself out there. Yeah, that's right. So the other problem is this. If you're not seeing the camera, or even if you are on camera, here's what goes wrong, is that if you're talking to someone who's very triggered right now, or if you're talking to someone who's very emotional right now, like around the full moon, or if you're talking to someone who's got a low self-esteem, but when they're on camera, they present something very, very different. They overcompensate, and they say rah, 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 fluffy ducks, or, go get them, or, you can be a powerhouse. I can teach you how to have a funnel, or, emails, and be a successful business entrepreneur. And I'm a life coach, and I'm going to find, 100 students who are going to be life coaches in the next week, and rah, rah, rah. So here's the problem, is that might not be true. That person claims that they made, $10,000 last week, and they're a business mentor, and they've got 100 people signed up for this course to be a life coach. That might all be false. So there are misinterpretations due to social media limitations that you don't know how they live. They might be living in a trailer park. No judgment to people who live in trailer parks. I love trailer parks. I love the movie, what's that favourite movie where they live in trailer park? Anyway, so and you can see, right, the trousers I wear, I won't show you my trousers, they've actually got like a stain on them, because I love using kerosene to repair there's my kerosene stain on my really grotty trousers with a hole in them. So that's the point I'm trying to make, is that, and also emotionally, is that what people present and what's really going on. And this is what happens. So if you perceive them in a certain way, and I mentioned those two famous people, like I had a famous actress, I won't give you too much information, I can't even mention their nationality because then it will kind of hone into where and who they are, but they were in their 60s or approaching, they were nearly 70, and they said, I've been famous all my life and I've had this relationship, and then we talked about this person's mother and father. I won't give you any more information, but it all came out in the wash in the conversation that they really needed to do some deep core emotional healing. And I even sort of almost set up an appointment to give them some counseling, and it was going really, really well. And they got scared and they backed the truck up, and I haven't heard from them since. So when you see someone and you see their background, or when you see someone, you see their job, or they're even famous. I've even known someone who was dating, they were literally dating a prime minister in a Middle Eastern, not a Middle East, yeah, Middle Eastern country. So this woman in London was actually going on dates with a prime minister, an actual prime minister, in a, like, you know, somewhere around the area of Qatar or Kuwait, that area, one of those smaller countries. And they were actually going on a date with this. They weren't a king, because I think they had royalty, I'm not sure. So when you're talking to these people, you could be experiencing misinterpretations due to the limitations of social media. And now here's the other problem, is that if you're just typing, and I've had this problem with my friends, sometimes you've really got to know what's going on for them. You know, if they lost their father when they were a teenager, if they grew up with an alcoholic, if they've got a really successful family with children, everything looks great. When you're in social media, what you must understand is that it's going to bring up all of their triggers. It's going to bring up all of their issues, and it's all going to be in their face. So if you're just typing something really, really sort of inane or mild or non-triggering, don't be surprised when they come back and you're typing and texting away and you go, oh, how could you say such a hurtful thing, Edward? And I said, oh, I didn't know I said that. I didn't know I'd tread on your toes right then. And so you've triggered one of their issues. And here's the thing, due to the limitations of social media, if you don't have a camera, you can't see that you've hit on a topic, and they're welling up with tears, and they've walked away from the camera, or walked away from their phone. They go outside, and they might even been contemplating suicide that day, or split up with their partner, or about to lose their home. And then you've said something a little bit, off the cuff, a little bit too impersonal, a little bit too challenging, and then you've already triggered someone who's almost on the verge of committing suicide. And you go, oh, don't take it so personally. I didn't mean that. So misinterpretations due to the social media limitations of the camera. Because now Mother Mary channeled to me last week, and she said people should stop texting so much and they should actually telephone and speak to someone, because there's a lot more heart energy. So the lack of heart energy and heart presence, just texting or just being on Twitter. Now, do you wonder why Twitter is just so triggering and why Twitter makes people so angry? And that's because people are typing, about Donald Trump or about National Rifle Association or about woke politics or everything they feel very, very, deeply personal about. And then the hearts are completely raw and open. And then people are just trotting on top of them because they don't have this camera experience or face-to-face contact. Back in the days when we had face-to-face contact with our neighbours, you would look at the micro changes on their face, and you could see that their eyes were welling up, or if they were insecure or sad, and you would back the truck up and you'd say, ooh, I really stepped over a boundary there, I'll be more careful. But on Twitter you don't do that, because you just go in there all guns blazing with your agenda. I can't stand Donald Trump. I don't like woke politics. I think what Russia is doing in Ukraine is reprehensible. And you just go in all guns blazing, and then people get wounded, and it's no surprise, because you can't due to the perceptions, due to the social media limitations, you can't read the human heartfelt cues. You can't see that someone might be suicidal, someone might be lonely, someone might be insecure, someone might be going through a divorce, someone might have been crying all week, someone might be emotional because it's a full moon or for whatever reason. So we have these social media limitations. The technology is just not there yet for us to feel what they're feeling. Okay, I think we're up to number 4 or 5 or whatever. People have insecurities, people have loneliness, and sometimes people are going through all a whole gamut of emotional experiences that you can't see, and that's why we have problems, particularly with Twitter and so forth. Now, what people want and what you can provide. It's very important to understand with your target audience what people actually want from you. So if you're offering something, let's say hypothetically I'm presenting myself as an inner child therapist, or psychic reading or coaching or whatever. Sometimes you can present something, but it's not what they want. So you have to understand why other people are doing social media, what do they want from it. Sometimes, and I get this quite a lot when I'm on Facebook and I'm going live, and a lot of people just watch me for entertainment, and they just like my voice because I'm English and I speak nicely. And I do know some older women in different parts in America, like Florida or North Carolina, and they're not joining me in because they want to grow spiritually or achieve oneness or talk to their angels. They're just watching me because I'm entertaining. So it's very important to understand what people want, because if you have this perception, oh, well, you're watching me, so therefore you want, to utilize my skills, or you want me to advise you on this. Well, no, they don't. Sometimes social media is just entertaining, and they just might like listening to an English gentleman, using a nice voice, or, with talk about sewing machines or Mother Mary. So sometimes it's very, very important to understand what people actually want from you. And then also what you can provide. Are you providing or offering to provide the correct thing that they want? And here's the problem, is that my father used to say, don't trust experts. Well, there's another famous saying about experts, like everybody's an expert, right? And here's the problem on social media. As soon as social media opened up, everybody became an expert. Everybody had a YouTube channel with someone, planing a piece of wood, offering to make a coffee table out of pallets, or everybody was on social media doing crochet designs on how to do a granny square. So everybody became an expert. But not everybody can provide expertise advice to you, or sometimes you're just limited and you think you can meet someone's needs when actually you can't. Either you're not qualified, not experienced, or you're just blowing your own trumpet and you don't really have the skills. Now, I'm not saying don't try, because I saw a talk with Anthony Robbins the other day, and he said that educating people on social media was like a growing, $3 trillion worldwide business a year, or whatever he quoted. So it is nice that there are people wanting to be teachers, and I commend all of them. But if you're hoping to achieve something and provide something and become an expert, Sorry, we have a hurricane right now, and the wind just hit the house like a force. It's a bit scary. I got a bit of a shock. So make sure that what people want, that you know what they want, and make sure you're realistic about what you can provide, and try and make an accurate assessment on those criteria. People are driving up. No, it's not. Nobody for me. Who was that? No. Okay. Now, reading, verbal, written, camera cues. What am I talking about? Yes, so this is my notes. Reading, verbal, written, camera cues. I talked about that already. You've got to be a master of non-verbal communication. Now, what do I mean by that? So, in order to overcome communication difficulties, you've got to be able to read. When someone's typing something, what are they really, really, really saying? Oh, thanks. Thank you, Mary. So what are they really, really saying? And this is a problem with social media, because someone might... The house is really getting battered by this wind. It's just a hurricane right now. So people might be voicing something, but it's not what they truly believe. They might just do it for attention seeking. They might be playing devil's advocate. So if someone is... let's say someone hypothetically right now is ranting and raving about mask wearing, and they're a Karen about COVID-19. You've got to read those verbal cues. Are they really saying it because they really believe it, or because they're sad and lonely and they're just trying to trigger someone, or because they're playing the devil's advocate and they don't even really believe it? They're just sort of going along with a sort of a patter or a line, and they're just saying it because they're trying to trigger someone or trying to influence. So understand, the difficulties of communicating is that when someone says something, is that what they really mean? Is that part of the body of their belief system and the body of their knowledge base and their culture and who they are? Because some people, they'll type stuff or they'll say stuff, but they don't really mean it. Sometimes they're just doing it for effect. So understand, on Twitter, when someone is like going on about Harry and Meghan, like, they've left the royal family and they're in America right now, and they gave a talk to the United Nations about woke politics, and they attacked America for not being woke enough and their history on slavery, and then people get triggered of what Harry and Meghan said. So sometimes people are actually not saying that. So Harry himself has been influenced by Meghan, and he might not entirely 100% actually believe those things that she's taught him to say. He might just be feeling that he's the second in command in the royal family, and that William gets to be king and he doesn't, so he's just triggered. Like when he went to that party and he wore a Hitler Youth, with a swastika on his arm, and they just did that for effect. So Harry might not actually believe the very things that he's saying. He might feel insecure because he's second in command. He might be henpecked by a strong, dominant woman, Meghan. And Harry might not even believe half the things that he actually says because he's young, immature and insecure and second in command. So just be very careful on Twitter, Facebook and whatever, that when people say what they say, they might not even believe it. Read the cues. And then even if you get on camera, sometimes as a therapist, I've got to look at their eyes and I see someone go quiet and sort of turn away, and they come back and their eyes are a little bit red, and I don't even know if they're actually ready to cry, and they're really going into a heartfelt, emotional moment. Someone's asking me if I can talk, so I'll get back to them. So just be able to read those camera cues. When someone's eyes well up and go red, make sure you can read that. If they go quiet and turn away, or if I said something that my father got triggered about, oh my God, this hurricane's going crazy and I've got to rescue my tarpaulin that's flying. So I'll finish soon. So some of the... it's going a bit crazy now when people are messaging me. So now... with apologising, sometimes just genuinely realise when you're trodden on someone's toes and just be honest and say, I'm sorry, I didn't intend it that way, or because of the limitations of the camera and me, reading you when your eyes are welling up and I just trod on some toes. I'm just sorry, I made a mistake, I didn't really intend that, or I didn't think about how it was going to affect you. I apologise and I'm sorry, and just be free and willing to admit it. And then giving people space. Sometimes if you trod on people's toes, sometimes they just not want to be left alone for a while, and just give them that space. And then also holding space. Sometimes people just want to be loved. Sometimes all of this typing, Harry and Meghan, or Ukraine, or COVID-19, or mask wearing, and people love to attack Karens, like you see Karens blowing up in shopping malls on YouTube every day, but sometimes those people are just sad and lonely and scared, so sometimes they just want you to hold space. And sometimes the words you say and what you type doesn't make a blind bit of difference. Sometimes you can just sit there on camera with them and just put your hands on your heart and just stay quiet and just say nothing, and just say a couple of comforting words and just hold space for someone. And sometimes social media's limitations are so bad that everything you say will get misinterpreted in completely the wrong way, and all you can do is just lovingly be present and just hold space for that person, and apologise, and just accept that the technology is not there yet for us to feel everything other people are feeling. Phew, I speak fast, don't I? I hope that helps someone. I've got to rescue my crazy flying tarpaulin, and I've got to message someone who desperately wants to talk to me right now. So lots of love, hugs and kisses. I love you all. Social media communication problems are a nightmare. but the world is full of love, and we can still make an influential difference and help people. So continue to keep on keeping on. Love you all. Bye for now.